about, and that's how seriously the Jews took this issue of having a picture of a person on a coin. So this isn't just about money. This isn't just about paying taxes. This isn't just about paying money to Caesar. This represents the empire. For the Jews, this coin with the picture of Caesar on it represents everything that is oppressing the Jews. It represents this system that is demanding tribute from all of them and is competing with their devotion to Yahweh. So Jesus holds up the coin and says, whose head is this? Whose title is on this coin? Now this is another one where I think the King James Version has the language better, is actually a better translation, because the King James says, whose is this image and superscription? Jesus isn't just asking whose picture is this on the coin, whose portrait is this on the coin. That would seem kind of silly, wouldn't it? Well, if Caesar's picture is on the coin, then you give the money to Caesar. All right, then let's put my face on a coin. It just doesn't seem to follow very well. The Greek word for image that Jesus uses is icon. Whose icon is on this coin? Whose image is on this coin? Icon is the same word that was used in the Greek Old Testament that these folks would have been familiar with when it says that God created humanity in the image and likeness of God, in the icon of God. So Jesus isn't just saying whose picture is this. Jesus wants us to think about the image and likeness of God, and this coin being stamped with the image and likeness of Caesar versus the image and likeness of God. What do we know about the image and likeness of God? What do we know about the face of God? What would it look like to have the face of God stamped on a coin? Well, the first reading we had this morning, we found out that you can't look at the face of God and live. God was so careful about letting Moses see him. Moses couldn't even see God's face. God hid Moses in the crack and covered him with his hand and sort of backed around because it would kill Moses to see God's face. We can't see God face to face that way, but God stoops. God veils God's self. God makes it possible for us to see God's face. Where? Where do we experience the image and likeness of God? Well, what do we know about the image and likeness of God? We're created in the image and likeness of God. If you want to see the image and likeness of God, look in the mirror. If you want to see the image and likeness of God, look at the person sitting next to you. That's where we see the image and likeness of God. That's where we can look at one another and see God. That is what is stamped on us, the image and likeness of God. And not just on our faces. It's not just an image of God's face on our faces. The image and likeness of God defines our whole self. The image and likeness of God defines our body, our mind, our soul, our life. Everything about us, our whole selves are made in the image and likeness of God. So, if we owe Caesar something as trivial as a coin, just because his picture is stamped on a piece of metal, how much more do we owe God all of these things that are formed in God's image and likeness? Our body, our mind, our soul, ourselves. Sometimes it seems as though the world, the empire, wants all of us. Sometimes it seems as though our culture wants to control every part of us. The world demands our time and energy to work for something pretty worthless. The world demands our attention and enthusiasm for entertainment that's mindless at best. The world demands that we worship the idols, the images, the icons that we've made for ourselves. The world values us as producers and consumers, but not as beings created in the image and likeness of God. So when we hear, give to the empire the things that are the empire's and to God the things that are God's, we already know what the empire needs from us. We already know what the empire is asking us for. The empire tells us every day that it will take everything that we're willing to give it and demand more. It will take everything we're willing to give it, promise us everything in return, and then leave us empty. That's what the empire will do. But when we hear, give to the empire the things that are the empire's, and to God the things that are God's, it's worth remembering those things that belong to God. The parts of us that are shaped in God's image and likeness. Our bodies, our minds, our souls, our lives, our whole selves. God doesn't demand that we give these things back to God. God, I don't think, demands anything of us. I don't think that's in God's nature to demand, because let's face it, God doesn't need anything that we can give to God. But God gives us what we need, and then God invites us. God gives us the opportunity to give back to God those things that belong to God, to dedicate to God those things that come from God and reflect God. So go ahead and give to Caesar the things that belong to Caesar. They're not worth very much anyway, and we don't really need them anyway, right? But then be ready to give to God the things that belong to God. Our bodies, our minds, our souls, our lives, our whole selves as disciples and lovers of Christ. Because the amazing thing is that as we give these things to God, they come back to us. They come back to us hallowed and healed and renewed, and with the image and likeness of God shining bright upon them. Amen.